My name is Mackenzie Hansen. On July 3rd, I interviewed Lost on the Metro, a St. Louis based alternate rock trio, in preparation for their debut album release. Here's my conversation with David, Jill, and Josh.
I think one of the first things I'd like to hear you guys talk about is just, individually, how it was that each of you got into music. And you can take that as specific as you want to, or you can be very, very broad. Go as far back as you need to, though, because I know for the, Jill, it's going to be when you were like a baby. So go ahead and just say what you want, okay?
Cool. You start first, Jill.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I have to go back to my mom and trips in the car and just how she sang with us and to us since we were tiny. And she had a great voice and she was trained on the piano. And so she could do all the parts. So she would have us do the melody and then she would do like the soprano parts and she would do the alto parts, and that's where I learned what contralto was, and she could go really low. So it was just kind of listening to her do this kind of magic with songs, and then we started to hear it, and we just learned to love singing and music from a really young age. So I think that's probably my biggest inspiration.
Absolutely.
Playing ABBA tapes in the basement with my
Yeah,
sister.
there we go.
Yeah. So, David or Josh, whichever would like to talk.
I'd say similar to Jill. My dad was he used to do solos for churches in the area, and he was always singing. I remember around every holiday, Christmas holiday season, they'd have Handel's Messiah playing on an old scratchy LP, and he'd be singing right along, preparing for his solo in whatever group he was singing with. And he got me going from I just remember that from when I was as early as my memories go. And then he got me into doing stuff like barbershop quartet singing and chorus singing when I was in high school. And then my brother really got me started on the guitar when I was in just starting off with college. And when I think about why I do this and why I enjoy the music, why it fulfills me so much, it's because it's been a part of me from a very young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Now, are you sure it was an LP and not an EP? Because
it was definitely an LP.
I don't know the difference still. I think what we figured out so far is like getting your kids into music is huge, because it's the same thing for me, family stuff. Whether I was, riding in the car with mom or dad, I remember my mom would always sing and dance, my dad would always drum and dance, or drum and sing, and I would always sing along with them, and I think I figured out harmony really young too, which was super cool. And then I went to such a small school in growing up to high school. Everybody had to basically be in choir and swing choir, or we just wouldn't have it. If enough kids didn't do it, it was cut. And we were such a tiny school. All of our sports were terrible, but we were so good at band and choir. We had 115 kids in high school, and there were 105 kids in choir. So I owe a lot to my band and choir teacher, and we were all, super musical. And it was like, that was just such a huge part of the school. It's like we were terrible at all the sports, but the music stuff mattered. And guitar, I picked up when I was 10 and quit, because I'm like, I don't like this. And but there was not really a teacher in the area anywhere. I was up in the country, and I think we would have had to drive about 45 minutes for guitar lessons. And then my band teacher in high school taught me some chords. And then for about 5 years and through college, I could just strum chords on the guitar and sing songs, which was totally fine. I think that's most people's relationship with the guitar. And it wasn't until when I moved to St. Louis and I found a really good teacher down here, a couple of really great teachers that I've had, that I really dove into it and just went through so many guitar books. And I would wake up at 5 just to practice guitar for 2 hours before I had to go to my desk job. And that's when I was like, I think I want to figure out how I can do this more. And it was that discipline, routine, but music's always been a huge part of my life. And then guitar, I think, eventually just became like, oh, I can study music on this thing. And yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
You've all both learned from music, and an extension through forming this group. You're hoping to further that as well, to teach through music almost, would you say?
Oh, for me?
Yes. Yeah.
To teach what we play? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so much of what we do, and I don't know, I mean, certainly with a lot of guitar players, there's so many guitar nerds out there and I think like what I practice versus what I play in this group, they're very different things. And that's what's so cool. It's like, I think a lot of guitar players, you practice these different things and all these structures or scales or harmonies, or you sight read or whatever it is. But when you're a really good musician, you bring something so different to every song. It's like, oh, I hear this song and I think I know what we could do on guitar to make it better. Not like, I play this on guitar, let's make the song fit around that. And like, that's what it's so about too. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So maybe you could talk a little bit as a group, how you found one another and what, you know, made you a group initially.
This is pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, David, you found me, so you
That
tell
is
the
true.
story.
David
Well,
has to start.
I, for a number of reasons, I had put down the guitar for a number of years, and I started working at a small private school, and a bunch of teachers had been in this teacher band for years, and they needed a bass player, and so I said, well, I can do that, and so I started rediscovering how fun it was to play music live, and Jill joined us at some point when we needed someone to sing a higher lead melody than any of us in the band could sing, and it kind of went from there. And then at the end of our school year, one of the guys, well, the main organizer of the band, said, well, I got an idea. Let's all write 5 songs this summer and get together at the end of the summer, and we'll see what we come up with, and we keep going. And he said at the time, he says, knowing me, I always say this sort of stuff and it never happens. It's probably not going to happen if I'll just throw it out there. So by the end of the summer, Jill and I got an electric guitar, and Jill and I had been had put together actually a lot more than 5.
Yeah.
A lot more than 5 songs, and we were the only ones who had written songs over the summer. So it was just us.
There you
That was
go.
kind of,
The teachers who don't do their homework.
exactly. So then, but I needed to start with an electric guitar, and so I was like, oh, I kind of a nice acoustic I enjoy playing. Where am I going to go get electric? And Josh was working at David's Guitar Loft. Plug for David's Guitar Loft.
Right.
And I went
I
in.
don't think
And,
you're supposed to say that afterwards.
what's that? So the Josh was working there, and he and I struck up a conversation. I thought he was really a really nice guy, and he was very helpful, and told me, gave me a lot of different ideas about what kind of guitar I should get, and I just kept going back. We would talk about this and that.
So
And
you came in quite a few times, and then
Yeah.
you took lessons for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
yeah, I needed to sort of refresh, and I took lessons for a little bit, and then I don't know when we were looking for another guitarist at the time,
Right.
and I was like, Jill, there's this really nice guy who works at this guitar shop. What do you think? Should I approach him,
I think
or
he
is
said
that weird?
cute. He said
He did.
cute guy. He
Oh,
said
there you go.
He
really
There you
said
cute.
adorable. And
Let's go check him out.
And we had a friend who's a rhythm guitarist who was playing with us at the time, and I think we were just talking about, you know, seeing if somebody was interested in doing lead guitar, and David was talking about Josh, and so yeah, we just had that conversation. He was like, I'm gonna go ask him, and so he did. He went into the shop, and
the only reason I said yes, because at that point was I hadn't had the chance to, with all the stuff, because like I said earlier, it's like I really, from like 22 to 26 is when I really picked up the guitar and things started to make sense, and I nerded out 100% on it. And I hadn't really gotten a chance to play in a band, like an original band that didn't have all the guitar parts written. I had played in cover bands and with some people who wanted to sing cover tunes and stuff like that. And that's fun, but it doesn't give you the same feeling as creating art does with a group of people, you know, and in telling a story in a meaningful way and being able to paint a picture together as a group. And I said, like, you know, you said original music, and I was like, oh, cool, okay, because I had other people ask me, we're like, we're in a cover band. I'm like, what kind of music is it? And I just didn't want to do the cover band thing. So I said, yeah, I'm like, oh, original music, that's awesome. I'll get to, you know, experiment with these things that I'm learning about finally. And so
cool.
I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So cool.
And it really, I mean, honestly, it was an amazing happenstance, because there are a lot of other guitar shops I could have gone to in St. Louis, and Josh might not have been working the day I came in, and
Right.
it was really cool that we touched base, and we had a similar work ethic, a similar idea about what we wanted to hear from music, a similar drive, all three of us. And I mean, well, all three of us are come from different places, but we meet at the middle with our desire to create the tunes we have, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember early on, like when Josh had been with us for a couple weeks. I remember one. He would be like, okay, can you play that again? And he would have different ideas, like really unique ideas for how a song could go. And that was when I started, like, I don't know how to describe it. I when I write poetry, it's really long, and so when we write a song, there's way too many words. And so what I've learned over the past couple years is that often like less is more, and so they're really good about kind of keying in on essential lyrics that should stay and lyrics that just should not be part of the song. And I remember that was one of my first like. Because he'd say, I don't think you need this, or I don't think you need this, and we should put this in there. But he was right. It was like every time it made the song better.
Not every time,
but a lot. And then also he would sing it, and I was like, he's got a good voice.
That took me a long time. It took me about a year to start singing in front of you guys. But yeah. Well, to actual sing harmony with
right,
it.
but you would sing melody with your guitar. He would sing his guitar parts, and it was like, oh. So yeah, it was really neat. And we started in our basement. Like we would play in the basement.
Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Come on. Oh my God.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I almost died.
And yet here you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Switch to evenings.
Understandably, yes. So I guess I'd love to hear you guys talk about St. Louis a little bit, because it seems like that's, pretty integral to how you've become the group that you are. So how do you feel that both working and living within the St. Louis scene and the music scene has informed who you are as a group and the sound that you have?
Anybody want to start?
Let me just say something this related, but only tangentially, and that is that Iowa is actually really important in our backgrounds as well.
Oh yeah.
Jill and I lived in Iowa City for 5 years.
Uh-huh.
And Josh grew up there, and there's something very oh man, I'm not gonna be able to come up with an adjective that doesn't sound cornball, but something very organic, earthy that I feel when we're playing music, whether it's in the lyrics or something. It's just as Josh proposes a change in structure of the song, and it's just there's definitely something country-ish, not like Nashville country, but living in the country as opposed to living in the city, that I think is really that binds us, I think.
Yeah,
that's so true. And that, well, and like you said, it's hard to say what that is.
Yeah,
but it's something about making art, and sometimes, and I talk about this a lot with these guys, is like we're painting a picture, right? And a lot of the time when we're writing music, I see some sort of a picture. Usually it's a landscape picture, like there's not a bunch of people in it doing this thing, or it's just like I usually think about some sort of whatever it is, whether it's the river. I grew up on the Mississippi, like 5 minutes off the Mississippi in the backwaters. And I spent so much time out there, and just being on the water and being connected to the sounds of the river and stuff like that when it's pretty quiet was just that. I'm always reminded of that when we're making tunes. And like, I see that kind of, not necessarily tranquility either. It's just, it's hard to describe that. It really is. But I think I got most of that in Iowa too. St. Louis for me though, that's when I picked up the guitar really and got into it. And I wouldn't have worked at the guitar store that I work at now. I wouldn't have been a guitar teacher. I never even probably would have went to lessons again. I would have just continued playing Bob Dylan tunes and John Prine stuff and Jack Johnson or whatever it was, and strumming chords. And I wouldn't have met a lot of the people that I've met that have influenced my music taste so much. Like I listened to a lot of blues and a lot of folk, but I never got really into jazz, or I didn't really listen to jazz guitar players, modern jazz guitar players like Bill Frisell and Julian Lage and stuff like that, and stuff that I can't necessarily play, but that flavors my palette so much when I'm trying to paint the picture with these guys or whatever it is. And that I have St. Louis to thank for, because the people that I've met here and all the different people and all their different tastes in music, that's something I did not get growing up in Iowa. I got the roots in the folk stuff, but moving down here, I was introduced to jazz and all these wonderful musicians that I didn't know about. Yeah. So, cool. So that's St. Louis definitely did that for me, and it brought us together.
Yeah, that's the thing when I think about St. Louis is that common geography right now is right here, and that's really
Yeah.
It's really the uniting factor between all of the different backgrounds.
I
Really
think
neat.
for me too, I think about my childhood, and a lot of my poetry and lyrics comes from childhood memories and kind of how I perceive, my youth, and some of that is kind of the painful memories too, but having the perspective of an adult, I guess, as I'm thinking through that. So I don't know. For me, like I feel like being in St. Louis right now, so much of my growing up as an adult has happened here, and so like we've lived in the same house for 20 years, and so it's like, I feel like part of me grew up in this house, and part of me has kind of like dealt with a lot of the things that I've struggled with, and so a lot of my sort of emotional growth has happened right here, in this space. And so I think about kind of how art and creativity has kind of helped me through a lot of that.
That's so cool though too. It's like I
Isn't it cool?
like, yeah, it's like once you get some form, and that's probably why I got into guitar when I did too. It's like when things as an adult started to feel somewhat stable, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I've got this job, but my life is like the same schedule every day now. And or for you, it's like if I'm in I'm in this place now and I have
Right.
this life and I have this structure, and it's like, oh, I can process some of these emotions now. For me, it was on guitar. For you, it might have been
Right.
poetry, and it's like,
totally.
so that definitely is, that's definitely a St.
Yeah.
Louis thing. It's like, oh, we're here. There's a stable structure around me for the
Yeah.
most part, and it's like,
Right.
now I can start to process some of this stuff. And
Right.
that's another thing about writing music with you guys, is just like, I feel like maybe we're not all the best at talking about the way we feel about our past or our present or whatever it is.
Right.
We're really good at connecting our music to that feeling,
Yeah.
and that's what's hard to describe, but
It
and
really
maybe easy
is.
to do when we write a song. We write songs pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
make changes along the way, but the base structure is usually there pretty quickly, which I think that says something to our connection through that writing
Me
process,
too.
which
Absolutely.
is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely beyond words. I think that's a really cool thing about music too. It's like I don't know. I was calling us Adorably Awkward. Like that could have been our group name.
Yeah.
They're all like, but
Yeah, speaking of the name, I haven't gotten the story yet, but I would love to hear the story behind the name Lost on the Metro.
I think there's probably 3 different stories, because there's probably a bunch of stories. But for me, it's when I think of the name, I think we went through a bunch of different ideas, and to be honest, we were a group of 5 for a while, and we had a different name, and we were calling ourselves Onto Ontario, but one, it's funny because people mispronounced it a lot for some reason, like the Onto and the Ontario. It got
Well, you've got
mispronounced
onto.
a lot. Exactly. And
Onto Ontario.
Right. That was pretty much what it was like.
Onto
Right.
Ontario.
And so that was interesting. But also like COVID definitely readjusted our sort of goals and who we were becoming.
It shuffled up the band for sure.
Right. Right. And it felt really uncomfortable when it was happening. I'm all like keep the peace and rock the boat, and it was but it shuffled us up, and it kind of sent us in a new direction, but it was the right direction, for whatever we have become. And so we were feeling like we didn't want to keep the same band name because we were totally different. We were something totally new. And as I was thinking about our lyrics and everything, I was thinking, if life could just be as easy as taking a metro ride, where it's like, there's our destination, that's where we're going, and of course it's not, and even when life is like a metro with a stop, like I still feel lost, so that was part of it.
So I guess, let's talk a little bit about just the process for rehearsal and what that has looked like for you all, specifically within the past year and a half or so, because as you mentioned, COVID really, almost worked to solidify who you are, but obviously it also was an impediment in the rehearsal process. So Love to hear you guys talk about that.
David, you want to talk about it?
Let me think about that one. I'll pass the baton.
So yeah, we moved out of the basement and onto the front porch, and I think we probably took about a month or two off, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think we took 8 weeks off.
Okay, yeah, a couple months off, and then it was like, okay, what does this mean? Maybe we can be outside together, and that's okay. So we played basically the whole last summer outside on the front porch, which was super cool. I mean, it was really cool to be able to write music quietly at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night or 7:30 or whatever time that was. A lot of really cool stuff came out of that, and pretty supportive community around here. Not really putting up with most of it, and we had a full drum set on some of that stuff too. And God, we were loud.
Yeah.
And then eventually, we all got vaccinated, but we moved inside, and so it's set up inside. It's like I'm over by the door, and then David and Jill are in the dining room together. We're like 30 feet apart here trying to at each other. And that's when I started using a microphone. That's when I started singing harmony, really, too, was once we moved back inside, just microphone, just be able to talk to each other across the house and above the amps and stuff like that. And when we were all inside for a while, and now, I mean, we finished this whole album indoors, which was not. It was honestly, it was nice to get back inside.
It was, but it was so crazy. So it kind of forced us out of the basement, and then took time off, and then we're on the front porch. But actually, it was really fun because we got used to performing together. 3 days a week. I mean, it was the craziest thing, and neighbors would stop by and clap for us or sit in a chair, and it was really nice because it was like all of a sudden we were performing live 3 nights a week, and so that was really cool. But then it got cold, and so it was good to go inside.
Like, are we going to stop just for the fall and winter time, or are we going to go inside?
So we went in, but the creative process has just been really wonderful, and I think also I feel like we've gotten more comfortable and safe with each other over this process to be like, that's not working, or try this, and so I really love that. And I have a vocal teacher, a vocal coach, and she's been my coach for like over 2 years now. And she's so great. And she said, your songs are all kind of within the same safe octave. And so she was really pushing me to try new things. And I found that you do that really well. Like you'll hear something and you're like, why don't you try this? And it's so cool because it forces me out of my comfort zone, and shows me that I can do it, It's really cool.
I think one of the most important things when you're writing a melody, which for us, and our lyrics are our melody, right? It's let's put that in the context of another instrument. So if I could try to play that melody on the guitar and you get to hear it, or whatever it is, and I sing it back to each other, or sing it with harmony, and the structure of writing together has gotten really cool.
It really has.
I think we used to step on each other's toes a lot more. Another thing we do too that I think is really important, and I'm sure most bands do this nowadays, but we record every practice, whether it's on a cell phone or a cell phone with a little USB mic plugged in it. They don't sound great audio quality, but I have the ability every day to work now to listen to our entire song list of practice in the truck and say, oh, we should edit that, or we should edit that. And that's for me coming up with harmonies, or like we should change this or add a little solo run here or whatever it is. I can have that the next day and be like, oh, what would it be? And then I could just listen to the song over and over and over again and sing it. That was such a huge help because it's big. We practice together only 3 nights a week, but I'm thinking about this stuff 6 or 7 days a week, whether listening to stuff and changing things around, and that's modern technology is such a huge help with that.
It's so true.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine going into 50 years ago and saying, okay, the tape is rolling, don't screw it up. You're paying for your time and for the the equipment and stuff like that, and then you get it back like, oh my god, that was terrible.
Right. And there are some practices where we're all so tired and we're like, well, I'm not listening to any of that.
Delete that one.
Probably a little bit
Where it's like a 15-second clip where, Josh will make some suggestion and that will go into the final thing that's on the album right now, where it was like just a perfect little thing to, to change the melody or harmony or whatever. That is really cool to be able to, yeah.
When did you start recording each practice like that?
Ooh.
A long time ago in the basement. We were in the basement. And it was terrible sound quality.
It'd be like, you just hear a drum, just drums and vocals. You're like, all right, cool. Every now and you get a bam from a guitar. And then someone making a terrible joke in between songs. You're like, oh God, this is
so bad.
We are not good.
We had to go through that though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of growing pains. I mean, like, all right, well. And I'm so glad you stuck with us because some of those early songs, I listen to them now and I'm like, oh. Okay, well.
That's great. Yeah. So I love how much you guys have said already about the songwriting process, but I would also love to delve into that a bit more specifically. Because I know you've mentioned that each of you kind of has a role that you play, but that you really bounce off of each other quite a bit. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
Cool.
Yeah, I can say when I get to practice and when I have a song, it's like these guys have done so much work already, and that's as a musician, I am so terrible at coming up with song lyrics or chords to a song or whatever it is, because with chords it's like, okay, music theory would tell me I have to do this. And I have been historically bad at using my ear until I've been able to work with these guys at coming up with my own stuff. And it's like, Jill's got lyrics done, David's got the rhythm part down, and now it took us a while, but now we have lyrics with chords on a sheet. So there's not a lot of, what chord are you playing, dude? What are you doing up there? You're like, you're in which tuning and your hands are where? Okay, I have no idea what the word. And so it's been super helpful. Now it's like I have the words and all the chords in front of me already, and it's just I get to start already from a song that's probably 70% done, And that's I have figured out I love to be in that spot. I like to look at a song that's almost there already and say, ooh, let's add this here and that there, make that change, add that harmony, and that takes like maybe another month. But it's so great. As much as we do together, I each spend time. Well, you guys spend way more time individually than I do with it. Which I would not be doing this at all if that wasn't already done.
Isn't that cool? And I think we probably spend a couple months on a song before, because we want it to be like good enough for Josh.
Yeah.
And like it's but also that has really kind of like upped our game.
Is that because I've rejected some songs?
Yeah.
Like this ain't there yet. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I see why you do. Oh, I see now.
We played this one a few times. We started playing it. This was a year ago. We started playing it again. He's like, "Do you guys really like that song?"
There's been a couple of moments.
We finished it. We played it for him on the porch, and that was his first response. Like, that's like, no.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You guys spend a bunch more time with it. I get. You know what? That makes me feel bad and good at the same time.
No.
It means a good.
Feel bad.
Well, just for the record, you were right. It was not a song to keep. So we just needed a gentle nudge in that direction.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But also, just to follow up on something that Josh said, he said that the song is 70% done, which is very generous. I guess from like one standpoint, it could be that, but the 30% that he adds is so vital. Like Jill and I will write a song together. Jill will write the lyrics and I'll write the rhythm part, and we'll work on it. We'll work on it. We'll finally settle on something we think, okay, this is good enough to show to Josh. But then he just transforms it into something really special. And I just don't think it, and we wouldn't, I'm really happy with the way our album sounds, like way more than I ever thought I would be. But I also know at the same time that if Josh were not a part of this, that I would be listening to the songs and be like, oh, okay, that's okay. I like that, but I love it. And I know it's because we called Josh for a while. We called him the architect because we would bring him.
I still like that name.
Yeah,
it's fun.
we would bring him something, and then he'd fiddle with the structure in a way that would turn it from something that well, me personally, I was happy with, into something I was overjoyed with.
Yeah. These would be nothing without the three of us working together.
Yeah.
You know,
it really is.
Thank God none of us want to be painters because it would make through. You know, and I could never do the solo artist thing either. We all definitely flow great with each other. We need each other. You know, and it's cool.
It is really cool. Yeah.
I love the term you've coined, the introverts who rock. I think that's a beautiful depiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say sometimes like the process is painful, but it's my favorite part of the week. You know what I mean? Like it's challenging, but it's so exciting too. And it's my favorite thing. So, and our daughter is here, and we'll send her upstairs, and she'll be doing her own thing, and I'll go up and hang out with her and check on her. And it's one of my favorite things to hear these guys working out kind of what they need to work out with chords and structure. And sometimes it's hilarious, and he'll be playing something, and Josh is like, I don't know, man, like what chord is that or whatever. And it's funny, but they're working it out, and it's like such a cool, complex layer that becomes, whatever this piece of art is. Each one, it's really neat.
I would love to hear some of the recordings of like me and you practicing Polaroid time, just the instruments, because we're going we don't know the words, right? Exactly. Like I know my words for harmonies now, but I don't know the words to all. I think maybe I do. I think I could get close, but I could never sing the song by myself. Right? You and I are now like, all right, and then you do this, and I do right, do. And that's kind of, I know those are recorded somewhere.
I'm sure they are.
Do you want to talk about the writing process at all?
Them. Oh yeah, I probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should. Okay, let's see, writing. So this is, I've been writing poetry since I was 9. And my parents went through a really rough divorce. And I'm the youngest of 5. And I was talking to somebody about how I was just having a hard time, or I was crying. I mean, I was raised not to really rock the boat, so I was probably just crying, not saying much. And she suggested that I start writing poetry about it. And I think that's the first time where I started actually getting out sad feelings, like actually saying that I was sad and writing it down. And it definitely helped. And I've been writing since then. I've been writing poetry, which is really funny because I look back in like school journals, and I was supposed to be taking notes like for history class, and it was poetry. I was writing poems, and that's probably why I got a D in history like my freshman year of high school, and I had to like redo that class. And I mean, I started to enjoy school more, and my grades improved, but I really struggled after my parents divorced, and that the poetry really helped. And so I've kind of like that's how I process hard things, I guess. And so about, I don't know, when David picked up the guitar again, he was playing a line, and I sang one of my poems to it. And he was like, wait, can you do that again? Can you say that again? And I did. And that was the summer where he had said they were going to write 5 songs, or we were going to write 5 songs. And that's how it started. We got a babysitter, and like 4 hours later, we had the very beginnings of a new song. We don't play that song anymore. It was like, whatever, first effort. But yeah, but it for me, it's been really healthy to be able to kind of get out a lot of those feelings of just depression and loneliness, and sort of being unsure about kind of what's ahead in life, and also just, I don't know, just processing as a grown-up kind of what happened when I was a kid.
Yeah, so you mentioned it's very cathartic. Is there any of you that feels that part of it's difficult to revisit, or for the most part, do you just feel like being able to actually fully process things now and understand them as maybe you once couldn't, you find that useful?
I do. I find, and this is something I told Jill too, and I think that was with whiskey sours, because I think sometimes we have very different, obviously Jill knows exactly what she's writing about, or maybe not sometimes. Who knows?
Right.
For me, I have my own meaning you know, even when I do know what Jill feels about it, when I actually really listen to like the lyrics when we're playing along, and I kind of feel like, oh, we're really creating art. This is cool, even if it's something we've practiced over and over and over again. Each time, when you really pay attention, I think that's why we love our music so much. It feels so good. I'm like, oh my God, I know how this story relates to me, even though it's different for both of them, you know.
Totally.
And I love being able to do that. Even there were definitely nights like I'm so tired. I'm so tired of this song. Like after we finished the album, we took 2 weeks off, you know, and it's just like, oh my God, we've been playing these for 4 or 5 months straight now.
Right.
And we finally felt ready and we put it together. And now I'm listening to it again. And after listening critically for so long, I'm like, oh my God, I love this story, you know, and it just feels really good. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes when I'm in the middle of singing, I get like, I'm so lost in the song. And sometimes like I like to look at them while I'm singing because it helps me feel engaged, like with what's happening. And I especially with Josh, because I want to make sure that we're singing at the right time, because that's something I need to get better at, and I'm working on it, you know. But it's great because sometimes like I'll look at them and I'll like have to catch, because I feel like I'm gonna burst out crying just because it's so beautiful to see them singing it, you know. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
I think our first, like, if we get some traction and we have people in an audience who like know some of the lyrics to our songs and someone sings, we're all gonna be crying at the end of the song. Oh God, they know the words. We love them. It's gonna be pathetic. We're gonna have to practice that.
It's gonna be awesome. We will have to practice.
Because it would help you if they come out with the phone camera flashlights.
We were listening to recordings of practice in the car together, and we went to Hawaii and we were coming back, and she knows all the guitar parts now and most of the words just from me listening to it so much, and she was singing along and just rocking, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not fake, she's enjoying it, you know. And it's so it made me cry. I was driving the car, I'm like, oh God, wow,
it's so
someone
cool.
else loves our music.
I love it.
That's beautiful.
I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was like, all of your songs are just swimming in my head, you know. And I love that. They're swimming in my head too.
That's lovely. Okay, so let's talk about the album. First of all, Letters and Landlines. Where did you develop that? I would love to hear. Yes, Josh.
Yeah. So these two like to send me a lot of text messages. And it's fine, but like, I love it. Like one day at work, and this is a true story, I was sitting there and my phone starts lighting up, and I just watched it light up for like a minute straight. 10 messages from Jill, and I'm like, this was could have been a 2-paragraph thing. But it was like, how about we practice this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and this was like, there's 5 texts, you know, and I don't remember what it said, but I was like, wow, that's a lot of text messages, which is fine. And what were we talking? I don't remember if it was like a change in a song, or it wasn't the album name. It was like a change we wanted to make in the song, or something about the studio or something.
Totally.
And I'm like, and I think I misinterpreted what David was trying to say in a text message. And I said, God, I wish we could just go back to Letters and Landlines, you know, instead of being able to communicate whenever we want, and trying to interpret what someone is saying through a text message.
Right.
You know, it's like, gosh, we could, you know, go back to Letters and Landlines. Something that would just be so much easier.
Right. And I was like,
album name.
I know. It was like album name, and that was it. Like that was totally it. It was great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you have, and this might be a loaded question because it is kind of like choosing a child, but do you have a favorite song, each of you, off of the album?
I will say one more thing about that title too, and why it fits so much, is Letters and Landlines. A lot of these songs are about the history of our lives, or events that have happened, whether traumatic or wonderful or whatever the story is. And it does. And I like our music too. It feels not antiquated, isn't the right word. I don't know the right word, you know, but it's not overly processed. There's no auto tune. It's not modern pop music in the slightest, you know. And I think that's such a cool thing. Some of it is an ode to, you know, some of the beautiful music, and all that music is still out there. It's just harder to find now, you know. There is such a huge amount of music that sounds really similar and over processed. And we were talking to our audio engineer Jason at Sawhorse about this, and it's like, he said that too, and that made me feel great. You know, if somebody else can hear how we're trying to be connected to a little bit of folk and a little bit of blues and a little bit of grunge and some rock and whatever it is. And someone said shoegaze recently. And I'm like, oh, all these great musics from the past 50, 60, 70 years, I can find hints of in our music. And Letters and Landlines is kind of an ode to some of that too, now that I've had time to think about
That's
it.
really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
I love that.
Yeah. That compliment that someone gave me, my coworker
Yeah.
Ben at work the other day, we listened to it and I was like, oh man, thank you. That made me feel so good. A favorite song though. Anybody?
It's really hard right now.
We had this question before the interview, so did anybody have an answer to it?
I was, for me, I do have. Do you want to
go for it?
Well, for me, I did, because I was looking at the song and saying, oh, I really like playing that one. I was thinking first from the standpoint of how it feels when I play it, and how like I enjoy hearing Josh's guitar voice and that sort of thing, and I was trying, and I couldn't choose one based on those criteria, and so all of a sudden I was like, oh, I know it, of course, and it's for me it's Whiskey Sours. It was in. Well, I asked Jill the other day how many songs we had written together so far in was it 2 years?
Yep.
2 years, and she said 46 or 47, and
I know.
And it was number 6, and so it was really really early on in the going. But it was the first. I remember it was so funny. We played that song for each other. We're like, oh, I don't think we'll ever write a song that we like as much as this one. So, and of course that's not the case anymore. But it was the first indication for me of like what I most wanted our sound to be, what I most wanted our songs to sound like, and that sort of empty, floaty feeling that I get when I play that. For me personally, for whatever issues I'm dealing with all the time, it's immensely soothing, and it's really restorative. And again, with that first one, it was really early on. I thought, oh, this is it. And every now and then we'll cycle through, and I love all the songs we play. There's one that Josh hasn't heard yet that I think comes actually it meets that
it's not quite ready.
That description, or no, early it meets that description even more. And so I don't know. I'm always sort of searching for what I first discovered in Whiskey Sours. If I'm thinking only from my point of view of what the rhythm sounds like, and what and then when Jill had her vocals, and then when Josh comes in and adds his harmonies and his guitar part, oh man, the whole picture is just really there for me.
That's cool.
That's cool.
I love
you have
that
a
song.
favorite?
You go.
So I'm so focused on the lyrics of each song, so it kind of depends on like my mood, and it almost changes throughout a day. So like there will be some days where I'm like, oh, I love listening to Penelope because that's what I'm feeling right now. And I guess over the last bit, I think Bitter Kiss has been my favorite. And I don't know, it's the lyrics. It's like when we start singing it, and I'm just thinking a lot, about the lyrics. But also every single song we sing, like as we go through it, I also remember kind of like the changes that we made to it, and the suggestions that like Josh has made here, and the changes David's made here. And so it's like a little journey every single song. And sometimes I just feel like a different journey. And so it's, it's like, that's I want to go on that journey today, where it's like, I don't know. And so right now it's Bitter Kiss.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, to tag on what you're saying there, and it's definitely how I feel on any given time. But one thing I really like about our songs, and this is when people ask me what kind of music we play, it's a really hard thing to answer, because it's got all these different elements in it. And I tell them, I talk about how each song kind of evokes a different emotion, and I think we do a really good job of like painting the picture of this song depicts this emotion or tells this story, and we don't venture too far away from that. And I think that's why I really like our music. It doesn't try to do too much. It tells the story of that song. It's its own story, and then the next song is its own story too. And that I love that. And I think we have some really rockin' stuff and some stuff that's calmer but tells this beautiful folk story or whatever it is. And yeah, and when I'm feeling like I want to listen to a rock tune, I think "Hope Not Enough" is easily my favorite song. I love the guitar parts of that. I love the words. The harmonies are so cool. It kind of modulates back and forth between like this rock and E major kind of song, but then there's some minor stuff in there that sounds really dissonant for a brief moment, and it pulls you around, and it always comes back to this really nice rounded E chord. That's just, I love that.
That's so cool.
And if I'm feeling like I want to listen to a story or something that, you know, makes me feel kind of emotional, I would say Polaroid Time or Penelope. Polaroid Time, because we talked about having to cut a song a couple of weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago. And I was like, I think we could cut Polaroid Time. And I was so wrong. That has become my favorite song. And I think it's because I have so much more respect for it now. And after we got the recordings back from the reference mixes and the masters, like, oh my gosh, that song is amazing.
Oh, that's so
You know,
awesome.
we killed that. The harmonies are amazing,
Yeah.
and
So
you know,
cool.
everything blends together so well, and it's such an amazing story too.
So cool.
I mean, that's gotta almost be the title track, Letters and Landlines,
Yeah.
and old Polaroid photographs, and
Totally.
I love that tune. And I think Penelope was an example of a song. I know I'm not picking a favorite here. Penelope was a song where we worked so hard, and we melded that song together through like a little modulation, and we added some stuff to it. And that song used to be like 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's still long, but it's and that song tells a beautiful story, whether you know what it's about, and whether it's loyalty or you know, the mythology or about our dogs, you know.
Our dogs, right?
You know, and it's those are my top three.
That's so cool.
We'll take it.
Can I add something? I was thinking,
Yes, please do.
I'm like, we were talking about like how to introduce a song, because I tend to be verbose, but also we were talking about how when we introduce a song to the public, I have to allow people to experience the song in their own personal way. And so I can't be like, so this song is about my relationship with, you know, this relative or this moment in time when this happened. And that was really good to talk about, because when Josh was like, he has his own experience with the song and David has his own experience. And so we have to let people relate to the song in the way that they're going to relate to it. And so that's been really good for me to think about letting people experience that, you know, by not saying too much about kind of my own personal experience with, you know, the lyrics. So,
Yeah. So despite the fact that they may come from very personal places, from each of you, you know, they create these universal messages when you put them out.
for sure.
That's very beautiful. Yeah. So I guess conversely, and this definitely doesn't need to be a different answer, but which song was the most difficult for each of you? And it could be one that didn't even make it, because apparently that happened.
Well, for me, the one that didn't make it was 2 days. And that might be a reiteration later.
Maybe.
God, was like we had so many, like I had my love-hate moments with Polaroid Time, and now it's like one of, you know, it's top, it's like right up there. But like 2 days, I would listen to like that was great, and then sometimes I could hear my voice more, like, oh, that's terrible, my harmony's terrible, this song is bad. But the thing with me that's so hard for 2 days is I play slide guitar on that, and it like. I sing a lot of that song, and when I'm not paying attention to where I'm at with the guitar and the slide, it's so easy to be just slightly flat or slightly sharp. So it's super dangerous, because it's like at any given moment I could be just, you know, a couple cents flat or a couple cents sharp, and it's like, oh, this ruining this whole verse. That was my least favorite. But on the album, God, I don't know. That's ooh.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't think I could pick one that's on the album.
I guess part of it for me is Bell the Ball, because you challenged us in the knee deep parts. You were like, it needs more. Yeah. You know, than just sort of again staying in that safe area for me, sort of vocally. And Josh had this great idea to really push the vocals, which sounds awesome. But every time I sing it, I'm like, oh, here it comes. And, you know, he was right. And it really rounds out the song in such a powerful way. But that is one of the, it's mentally challenging, you know, it's like, okay, I know I can do this, and it's a really cool part. And you know, so, yeah. It's good because it gets me out of my comfort zone.
I think, if the question were like, what song is most mentally challenging for you, definitely bell the ball for me. 'Cause it's the same situation. I'm playing slide guitar. I sing a lot, and my parts are high.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh God, oh no, what's gonna happen with this time around? You know. And then the other one, well, unsaid is really it's that same scenario where it's like I'm doing a lot of singing and a lot of slide guitar, and it's not like it's insane slide guitar or insane harmonies. That's what I love about our stuff is it's complex but simple at the same time, and that makes it beautiful. But oh my God, some of that music, it's so fragile because there's three of us, you know. There's David's guitar and kick drum, my guitar and vocals, and Jill's vocals, and a little tambourine. We can't forget the tambourine. And we had a studio bass player come in, and which, oh my God, that made everything sound amazing too.
Yeah, that was cool.
But that's some of those songs where it's slide guitar and a lot of vocals for me, like, oh God, I could screw this up so easy. There's a lot of mental challenge going on.
Yeah, it's true.
What about you, David? You got it?
It's impossible for me to answer. A different, I don't know, different relationship with different songs on different days, I guess. Not to not to pile on, but I guess Bill the Ball would be my choice. It's just because there's so many different progressions and different directions it goes in. I'm like, wait, have I already done this? That throw me off. It's as Josh was saying, it's a really hyper focus. Takes a lot of mental focus to get through that one and play it correctly. I enjoy it.
Even the message and story behind that song too is like,
It's
oh my God,
intense.
it's a heavy tune.
It's intense.
I think it makes us feel guilty when we screw it up because we're telling such a fragile and story that it means a lot.
It's,
you know,
it's so
that's
true.
another thing too.
Right. Yeah.
Oh. So here we are on the cusp of your debut album. What's next?
Oh God, David and Jill have like 30 songs already ready to go. We got the next 5 albums already done. Just kidding.
We are definitely working slowly because we want to, keep these songs fresh and hopefully play live more and just kind of start doing gigs and getting out there and hopefully supporting this album. I think that for me that feels like what's next, but we also have enough songs for another album, so we'll just slowly take our time with that and not rush it. And
with these two, you guys, okay, so when we wrote this album, I had to say, like, back in February, I'm like, let's pick 10 songs and practice them only, and then we'll have an album, and then we'll be good to go. And, like, I had to say, okay, no, and they had to stop themselves so many times. We have a good song we want to show you. It's really awesome. And I don't want to hear it until, like, August.
It's really good, because he said I don't want to hear it till August, and that actually really helped us to focus.
Yeah.
But we did keep writing because because I keep writing poetry, and he keeps coming up with riffs, and I'm like, oh, wait, I have an idea for that. If he's just messing around. So we've kept going, but it's taken us longer, which was probably healthier anyway, because then
what you're trying to say is you're
focus
just
on the
waiting
album.
for me now.
We're just
but I think it's Josh really helped us focus and tackling one song and getting it really down to where to the point we're happy with it and continuing to stay fresh with the songs from the album. I don't know. I don't feel like I can't stop the creative process. Every time I pick up the guitar, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this would work, or just
cool.
Whatever happens to come, I don't know, whatever I happen to play on a given day. But I also, but I really appreciate the reminder to slow down while we're perfecting a song. Mm-hmm. So there's this sort of two things going on. One is the paying meticulous attention to the details and making sure that we get those right and doing them well. And then the other is this sort of creative urge that is always there. That's always bringing something new and kind of interesting. I mean, and that's what keeps it. But the discipline, the balance between the discipline and keeping it fresh are what drive me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the next step for any modern band is like send in your Tiny Desk audition,
Right.
and your KEXP radio auditions,
Right.
and ask friends of friends of friends of friends and their families and aunts and uncles and cats and dogs to buy a record and stream it.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what we are. That's where
And
we
a
are.
T-shirt and maybe a sticker if you want.
Right.
Yes. Got to throw those in.
She said it. I
Right.
That sounds like an excellent plan. Well, do you guys have any last minute thoughts or anything you want to add? Closing remarks of any sort?
Honestly, this is one of the best things that's happened to me in my life. This trio making music, and I'm deeply grateful for it on multiple levels. It's just great.
Yeah, it's also so cool for me because I feel like wherever we are in life, like it came together at this moment to create this.
Yeah.
You know, sort of this band, this family, and it's really cool that you know, that this is the time for us to do this, and I think it's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, okay, this was our first band interview. It was fun. I felt like we almost went to group therapy. I'm like, man, I feel good. Yeah, me too. I don't know how I feel about all these songs now. However, we all feel about each other. We should maybe do this again. What's your hourly rate?
Right.
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah, great, fantastic questions. That was a blast. I love talking.
I'm happy too. It's been wonderful to speak with you all. David, Jill, and Josh for Lost on the Metro. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a conversation with David, Jill, and Josh of Lost on the Metro from St. Louis. Their album will be released July 16th, available on most streaming platforms for purchase.
I'm hiding out. It's 3 a.m. Funny thing is, nobody cares where I am. Tonight I need to feel the buzz. Thinking of what was.